All right, welcome everybody to this week's edition of Performance Analytics Office Hours. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. If this is your first time joining, thanks for spending some time with us, and welcome back to all the repeat folks. My name is Tom Pasek. I'm a product marketing manager here at ServiceNow. I'm going to take just a quick minute here to run through a few logistical items for our new participants, and then we'll get into this week's content. So first of all, the format of these sessions is we usually kick off with a quick presentation from our teams. Our inbound and outbound product managers graciously donate their time to meet with you. So these sessions are ultimately for you, our customers and partners. Hopefully you're getting what you need out of them. If you're not, if you have suggestions or ideas for what we could do to make this more useful for you, please drop me a note with some feedback. Would love to hear that from you. After the presentation from our teams, we'll transition into a period of open Q&A. So feel free to listen in, but it's your opportunity to get your questions answered. If you have anything, go ahead and put your hand up or drop us a note. You do have the ability to go off mute and ask questions. We're going to ask if you are not currently speaking, please try and remain muted so you're not interrupting the presenter or other participants. You also have the ability to use the text chat from Zoom if you want to ask your questions that way. We'll ask that you go ahead and make sure you address those to everyone as opposed to a specific presenter. We've got a few other folks who are typically monitoring the chat and answering those questions in there. There may be a situation where you have a technical situation that's very specific to your instance. So we'll try and help as much as we can on this call, but just keep in mind, we might ask you to go ahead and raise an incident on high, and we'll follow up with you offline so we can move on to some of the other questions. We do record these meetings, so if you or your organization are not comfortable with that, please go ahead and disconnect now. One piece of business I want to note for the next session that we have, so 2 weeks from today, we're going to convert this existing meeting into a Zoom webinar format, which will have a little bit more streamlined Q&A functionality. We're not expecting any problems. The existing URL and meeting invitation that you registered for should continue to function. If there are any problems with that, just go ahead and check the community forum. I'll make sure and get an update on there if we're seeing any issues, but if things go well, you shouldn't have to change anything on your end. The URL I have on screen here, bit.ly/PA office hours, all lowercase, it's case sensitive. You'll find all of the old recordings of previous office hours. If you want to go ahead and flip through those for reference or dig into a topic that you missed, you can find all those on a playlist there. And then last thing for me, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but again, we're going to have our call for speakers for Knowledge 2020 opening soon. Would love to hear your stories about how you're using performance analytics to achieve outcomes in your organization. If you want to drop me a note, we can have a chat offline about your story. We'll have a formal call for speakers where you can actually submit these via the website soon. But if there's anything you have kind of kicking around in your head or want to bounce some ideas off me, would love to hear from you. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Lidvija, who is joining us from our Amsterdam team today and is going to walk you through Workbench Widgets. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everybody. I'm Lidvija, and I'm one of the product managers for Performance Analytics. And today we will learn about Workbench Widget. It's a very powerful widget available as part of Performance Analytics. Okay, let me start sharing my screen. Just a second. Workbench Process Widget. We'll cover 3 things today. The what and why. Why do we need the Workbench widget at all? And how it is possible to have a data conversation using a Workbench widget. And a little bit of setup. We'll not get into the details, but I'll show you how it's done in the platform using an existing Workbench widget. The what and why. Okay. Let's look at this particular indicator. What you're seeing is the backlog trend, the open incident backlog versus age. When I look at it in isolation, I see that it looks good, right? The number of open incidents, they're going down, and there is like a 30% reduction, let's say from previous month. In March, it was a lot, and now currently in April, it's going down. All is good, yes. But what if I overlay average age of open incidents on top of the same indicator? It's interesting. You see, the indicator is going up. Well, this could mean that though the number of open incidents are going down, my team is cherry picking the easy ones or the low priority ones and they are finished. But the more challenging, difficult, or older incidents are still in the backlog. And that's why the average age is increasing. As you see, when we add more and more indicators to our story, the story changes completely. In order to get a complete picture of what's going on in your process, maybe you might have to add, let's say, 5 or 6 indicators. But if you do it on the same time series chart, it could be very cluttered and it's difficult to read. And the solution is the Workbench widget, which you see a snapshot of on the left side. Using the Workbench widget, it's possible to add multiple indicators on the same pane and look at the different metrics around it. I'll show you how. And that is how we can have a data conversation. Now, what do I mean by having a data conversation using Workbench? Let's take a scenario. This is the number of open incidents for Tier 1. I see that there are 113 open incidents assigned to the group Tier 1. All right. But how does it look in terms of the other indicators, like the average age of the open incidents? What is the first call resolution rate? How many of them are not updated in 5 days, or how many of them are not updated in 30 days? So as of April 20th, there are a total of 113 incidents. And of these 113 incidents have an average age of 19.49 days. And the first call resolution is 75%, but I see that it has dropped, which is, I don't like that much. And of these, there are 71.7% that are not updated in 5 days. And there is a less number of percentage that is not updated in 30 days, right? In a single view, there is a whole story that could be presented using the Workbench widget. How these 113 incidents are doing with respect to all these different lenses. This is the trend of these 113 incidents over time. Yes. Now let's take a minute to observe what is below. This is how these 113 incidents can be broken down into different categories. If priority is the breakdown, we see that this is the distribution of incidents that are there of these 113 incidents. I see that, okay, the critical incidents, they are taking a small chunk of these 113 and most of them are low. Yeah, that is good. But if you closely observe the trend that is available here, they are on the rise. Though it is a small chunk of my whole, the critical incidents are increasing and I don't want that. Now let's take a minute and go over the Tier 3. You see the Workbench widget has different sections here. So you could inspect the same indicator in different states and also associate different indicators based on what is relevant. For example, you see that my first call resolution is replaced by average reassignment times. Or let me show that. So for groups Tier 1, the indicators that I'm considering are average age, first call resolution, 5 days, not updated in 30 days. But whereas for groups Tier 3, I am more interested in average age, average reassignment times, and not updated in 5 days, not updated in 30 days. Where it makes sense. For Tier 3, it's more about it's not the first call resolution rate, but it's about the reassignment times that I have to be looking at. This way, you could associate different indicators that make sense for that particular section of the main indicator, which is number of open incidents in this case. Okay, let's take a closer look at the average reassignment times. All right, and when broken down with priority, I see that most of these are critical and high priority incidents. This gives me an insight that all the difficult incidents are being thrown around like a hot potato, and I need to do something about that if I have to get good results in the number of open incidents, or in the average age or the average assignment times. If I have to bring them down, this is what I should be targeting at. Now let's look at the same data in a different dimension. Let's go to category. It looks like most of these 163 incidents are taken up by software, which shows me that there is an opportunity for more knowledge articles around this category so that I can probably get down the average reassignment times. And this is the way you can have a data conversation in a single window using the Workbench widget by configuring the related indicators that are relevant to a particular state of the main indicator. Any questions so far? All right, moving on. Now I'll show the same on an instance. Let me switch screens here. Yeah. What you're seeing here is an out-of-the-box Workbench widget available as part of Incident Premium Dashboard. And we are looking at number of open incidents broken down by state. Let's look at well, this is a test instance, and I have all test data configured for October 14th. So let's look at how that looks, how the data looks. As you see, I have the related indicators, average age, average reassignment times for these open incidents, and what is the average last update age, all these indicators. What's best is I can already move this over here and the data changes accordingly in these related indicators. For example, if I wanted to know how things looked on a different date, I know I have data on August 25th. Let's say if I want to understand how it looked on August 25th, all I have to do is go to that date and all the related indicators are updated. And all the breakdowns available. If I'm interested, let's say in average reassignment times, just like how we did in the presentation. These are the breakdowns available for this indicator, and you could choose. And all the statistics are available. Again, in the same single pane, you are looking at all these scores in the context of each other. There is also a possibility to change the visualization type on the right here. So you could choose Pareto, for example, to understand how the whole and part relationship works. Okay. And these are the different states. By default, when you're on a tab, it is whatever data is shown is for the main indicator on top. And you can notice that the records is available. This is available for any automated indicator that is configured as the main indicator. And you can directly go into the records for that date. So any date that you choose, the records are available for that date. And what's more interesting is that you could also do a comparison. Let's say you could choose a different date if you want to compare the records on September 26th with, let's say, October 14th. These are the common records between both the dates. And these are the records that are only available for October 14th. And these that are newly created on this date. Sorry, and these are the ones that are closed or moved out as closed as of this date. And these are the common records that are still open on both these dates. So in this way, you could also immediately get to the records and do a comparison between these two different dates. Well, in our case here, it's when you click on individual record, you are taken to the analytics hub. And here there is a possibility to do much in-depth analysis where your focus is only on this one particular indicator. I'll go back. Yeah, that about sums up the way you can have a data conversation around all these related multiple indicators in a single view for a Workbench widget. All right, now to the setup. So the type of the widget is Workbench, and the visualization is a process, but that's the only available one. And here you can configure the different states available in the main indicator. We have seen that there is a new and in progress and on hold processes available. These are the different states that we had, and these could be configured under the main widget indicator. And for each of those states, we could configure different indicators that are available in the supporting indicators. As we have seen just below the main indicators, these are the ones available in the new state. And this could be a different list for each of the states as based on what makes sense in that case. As an example, we have seen in tier 3, we had reassignment counts as the indicator, whereas in tier 1, it was always first call resolution. And the order is determined by this number. So what comes first, like new comes first. So it should have the lowest order. And then later on the other sections of the Workbench widget. Yeah. Same goes also for the supporting indicator. So based on the order, they are displayed inside the Workbench widget. Yeah, and once you add those things, you have a working Workbench widget. All the supporting indicators are available here, and whatever breakdowns are available for the main indicator are displayed here. I mean, if those breakdowns, whatever is configured for the indicator, they are displayed here. Yeah, that's a quick overview of the setup. I'll pause up for a minute here, maybe if there are any questions. See. Okay, I see Adam is answering them. All right, so that's about it. That's the most powerful widget that ServiceNow offers, especially when you have to tell a story about the whole process. So there is no more multiple widgets, maybe no more back and forth communication to explain what is going on, but it's in one pane. You have all the required indicators configured, and that itself is enough for the process owner to dig more into the details and find valuable insights to determine what are the next best actions to improve the process.
And I'd like to add on to that with, or to clarify with we were talking about the process owner. This is amazingly valuable for process owners. If they haven't seen it, I would show them. There's many examples in out of the box content, but you can configure it yourself to match what your process owner wants to see. It is not ideal for executives. They like single scores, and it's not great for frontline workers and sometimes managers because they need to get to the records sooner. They're not looking at the trends. But when you apply this to the sweet spot of a process owner, I've never seen anything better than it. With the multiple supporting indicators to see what's there, the delta, the ability to see the records, to drill into it is just phenomenal, and is generally very well received by the right people. But just it's important to understand who the right audience is for this and when you want to apply it. It is an amazing amount of information on one screen.
Rightly said.
And I believe, Ludwika, you have to step out, right?
Yes.
All right. So if anybody has any questions about the Workbench, we can take those now. Otherwise, we'll be able to move on. There is one question for the Workbench widget. Does it support multiple breakdowns, multiple elements select? If we use multiple elements select, does the Workbench respond well to that? Oh, we already lost the video. I believe it does. You should see the configuration. So when you're configuring single scores or any of the widgets, you do configure the widget on how you want it to behave, whether you want it to aggregate it, the number, or break it apart. I believe the Workbench aggregates it. So you need to look and make sure that it gives you what you want to get to, but it should respect that, the multiple element select, which was added in New York. Okay. So as we go through, yes, process owners is, as I said, process owners is the main target. It's used in other places. If you have the right people, it's fine. I mean, you know your audience much better than I do. Process owners typically respond to it really well. And I've seen some CIOs love it. But just as a general, overly generalized use case, the executives like the single scores and very simple things. They don't want the details, where the process owners want to be able to look at the different breakdowns, see the different correlations. So they're best, most responsive to it, but that's not to say other users wouldn't use it. Just it is rarely that everybody loves it. Okay. And what we were demoing was the Workbench widget, which can be applied. We were looking at ITSM, but it can be applied to any indicators that you have, whether it's project or security or incident or HR. The other question came in about changing the trending areas with the Workbench. The Workbench, you can configure the widgets you show on there, but there's very little configuration you can do today to change the color or the font or any of the layout. If you really need to sculpt that, then you have to use separate single score or separate widgets to build that. The Workbench is not highly configurable in terms of visualization. If you do want to change the time frame, one of the things I've done is the main indicator, I believe, is showing 90 days on a daily score, which is often what we have. If I need to see more than those 90 days, what I'll do on the main indicator is make it a weekly or monthly, and then the periods go back much further. So if I needed to show 2 years on the main score widget, I would convert that from daily to weekly or monthly. The actual periods are not configurable. And again, the Workbench can be used, any indicators can be used on the Workbench. And if you look through the out-of-the-box content, you'll see different variations. The different tabs of the Workbench, sometimes you want them by age, sometimes you want them by state, sometimes you want them by user. It is really about the story you're going to tell and how you're going to configure it. And the Workbench, it's part of PA. So if all you have is ITSM, is incident, the complementary version of incident, you should be able to create a Workbench on that. I mean, I think you only have 17 indicators. So that's a little bit limited. but the Workbench is not, there's no special licensing for it. It's been there since, I believe, Helsinki. So you all have access to it. You can use it on any of the indicators that you have. Okay. I think I've gotten to all the Workbench related questions. But I will bring up a point because there's another question about this, about breakdown elements. So in the Workbench, and this is your little performance trick of the day. In the Workbench, the order of breakdowns is the order of breakdowns on the indicator. You set the order on the indicator form in the breakdown related list, what order you want them to be in. Fewer breakdowns is better. When you have large numbers of breakdowns, we have to go query all of the spark lines for that. There's a lot more data to pull back, and it can cause some performance issues when you get to large numbers. So I like to keep my elements below 100. If you get over 1,000, I get a little concerned, and the default limit we have is 10,000. And the idea is that is geared towards data that humans can see and recognize. I cannot scan 10,000 data points and find the needle in the haystack. So it's about up-leveling what you have to be able to see manageable amounts of data. And you're only seeing 10 or 20 on a page. And how often do you click to page 2 and page 3, right? Nobody wants to scroll. So we want to up-level. So if I were looking at CI, I would want to do CI class. I have less classes. And then once I go into the class, I'll drill in. So that's where we want to take advantage of breakdown relations, which show up in the Workbench as well. Hierarchies. There's lots of things you can do to see it, but you want to be, the smaller numbers are better. And again, under 100 is where I see it being useful. The performance tuning. If you do have one that has 1,000, and that's okay. There's cases where you're going to have 1,000. Maybe I'm breaking down by assign to. Don't put that as the first one. You want to make sure that the first breakdown in your Workbench is meaningful. You want it to be meaningful, but you want it to be the smallest meaningful one you have. So if I might break down by priority, I only have 5 values. It's great. If the user then wants to choose assign to, choose assignment group, they absolutely can, but that way I don't take the performance hit if they don't need that. Okay. Okay, we'll get to other questions, I think, pretty shortly. The documentation for Workbench widgets, I doubt has changed since Helsinki when it was introduced. Things have been fixed, but there haven't been really new enhancements. So in London or Madrid, the documentation should be just as current as it is in New York. And in general, with our documentation, we do fix issues in previous versions. But even if you're not on New York, you may want to look at what's in New York because we do enhance it. We do improve the documentation each release. We don't necessarily backport it because we might have referenced a new feature. So I would look at the new stuff and then quickly look at your version just to see if there's any changes. But we do go through the documentation every release and try to add more use cases, more descriptive text. So you'll often find that even the same feature is just explained better in that new version. But we do add new features, so make sure you reference your version as well. Okay. So a question had to come up with dynamic before about the Workbench. Can I make it dynamic? Dynamic is not supported today. I will tell you, we hear your requests. We hear them very loudly on how do we make that happen. We hear them. The way we do it today, if I had to do it in New York, what I would do is just simply add a manager breakdown to the dashboard. You can configure element security to whitelist or blacklist users, so they can only see their name or the names you choose them to see. I will tell you, element security can be complicated because you have to figure out, well, they can't see it by manager, but can they see the global number? Can they see it by the total number by priority? Or you're truly restricting it to just see the numbers for them. You just have to make sure you work out those details, but it does work. So I could whitelist it so that the user can only see themselves, not a global number, not anything else. When they come in, it's going to default to that. If I don't mind sharing, I like a little competitive drive. I will let you see all the breakdown by manager. And And in the breakdown dashboard, just like any breakdown dashboard, once I've selected myself, when I come back to that dashboard, the default is going to just show me my data. So it can be a very nice user experience still, once you select your name the one time. But dynamic, as you've requested it, we are listening very loud, very clearly to what you're asking for. Okay. And there was a question about dashboards and widgets. So the Workbench generally should be a single widget tab on a dashboard. I've seen people cram multiple workbenches on there. It technically works. I've never seen it be a great user experience. The Workbench contains so much data. It's generally going to be a full screen single widget on a tab of the dashboard, and you'll see that pattern if you look at the out of the box content. Okay. I think we've answered all the questions about workbenches. There's some more about a couple questions about element security. Maybe we'll tackle that next year. It's not, we do have a schedule of the topics we're going to talk about for the rest of the year. I don't believe that's on there specifically. It can be an in-depth topic, so it's not a great fit for this, but perhaps we can introduce it a little bit more. There is information on security for breakdown element security, which was really useful for controlling the data that is exposed on your workbench and in the dashboard choices. Okay, so I'm going to move on to some of the other questions that we have, and I think we've answered them all. I know there was a note earlier about somebody had one, so feel free to ask your other questions, and I see one now about historic collection.
So I had one, it'll take too long to type. It's way easier if I just ask it. On trend reports or basically any kind of just regular reporting, like I'm trying to figure out a way where I have a whole lot of data, let's say, that's grouped into different groups, and for the most part shows what we need it to show, but then there's those outliers where like maybe you're doing something by assignment group and you're seeing, 1,000 tickets here and 1,000 tickets there and then 10 in these other 3 groups. Is there a way for us to do a qualifier that says exclude totals less than X or something like that?
Like a having clause?
Yeah.
No. In PA, in most of the PA widgets, you can configure top X, so it would drop off the bottom ones.
Okay.
By either, I think by percentage, or you can just say show me the 25 or page them. Generally, we want to reports a little bit different. In PA, I want to show them at least on the separate pages, so I can scroll through it, because I don't know if it's going to be what that threshold is until I see it. I mean, I understand the use case for it. Don't only show me things that have more than 1%, or more than 5%, because that's what I'm going to deal with. But in reporting, there's not a having clause supported today.
Okay.
I believe it is in our backlog, and you can do it with some scripting. There, you can do, if you do a lot of work, you can get it to work. But I would go with generally it's not supported. You might be able to get away with it with a related list condition to do some qualifications, possibly, or a scripted filter, but you'd end up double querying. So you'd have a performance hit. If your query only takes a second, it would take a second longer, which would still be okay. But there's not a great way to handle it for the couple of those use cases, other than just make sure that the big numbers show up on top, right? With a bar chart or whatever comes in, a Pareto. Okay, I have a question about historic data collection, which is always a fun topic. Okay, incidents older than 30 days. Is it doable? Is a great question. I want an indicator of incidents older than 30 days. Can you do that historically? And the answer is yes, right? So you would have an indicator that it's where the, I'm saying yes. I think you'd be yes. Yeah, so I think you'd end up with a relative indicator where the open date is more than 30 days before today. And then you would do a daily collection that scrolled back in time. So the normal open one does work. And I think you would just need to take the open incidents indicator and add that relative condition, and we should time shift through it. But that should work, because you would do, yeah, it should be fine. The only issue you would have with that is, you wouldn't see anything until it is 30 days old. So generally what we do would be like open conditions and then an age breakdown. And then you, on the widget, you can just show that breakdown. But if you needed to have 2 levels of breakdown on top of the last 30 days open, that are open for more than 30 days, then you're going to have some variant of open incidents just with a relative complier operator. If you're looking for an example, post a question in the community, and there are questions in the community that show the relative operator on the dates. Okay, next question had to do with font size, list type. If you don't see an option to change the font, and which we rarely have, font is something, it's really rare that you're able to change that in the platform at all. But font size of the font, the color, if you don't see an option, you can't change it. Again, that we value the consistency on how you configure it, but then there are use cases where you need to do a little bit more. That is trying to be addressed as well. We always have changes, or we have to balance that with accessibility requirements to make sure that somebody doesn't make an ugly dashboard that's not accessible and hard to see. But certainly there should be some more configuration of that, so that is being worked on, but is not available. What you see is what you have today. If there is not an option in the style tab, there's not an option to change it in a report. And then PA, I don't know if any of them you really can configure other than selecting the templates. Okay. Hi, Lisa. I love your questions. More levels of breakdown, I believe, is the #1 thing we get requested. If it's not #1, it's #2. And it is something that we continue to work on. It's not in New York. It's not in Orlando. And we are trying to address that and still be able to manage size and performance. But it's being worked on. I will mention this though, often with a 3rd level of breakdown, when I talk to it, it's people are trying to break down by city, state, country, and they consider that to be 3 breakdowns. In many use cases, not all use cases, but many use cases, putting in a hierarchy will allow you to do a roll up and location, whether it's city, state, street, building, campus, continent, whatever you want to have. That's actually all one location, or one breakdown with multiple elements. Same thing happens with manager and 2nd level manager and 3rd level manager. Those are all just manager. So if you went to knowledge in the last 3 years, I think we've done a session, PA 301 is the lab that we've run. If you went to knowledge, or anybody in your org went to knowledge, log into the community. You must be logged in, and you can download the presentation on Performance Analytics 301, Visualizing Hierarchies, I believe is the name. It's a great presentation, 100-minute lab that walks you through how you do it and the different techniques that we use. And there are multiple tools to get it to be done with breakdown relations, hierarchies, then the general breakdown matrix, which is limited to 2. Lots of information on there. In there, you can grab the lab, do the lab. I believe we have a session set up where we'll talk about it briefly. I will say it's a 100-minute lab, which is a tight time frame, and we're going to do it we're going to do an overview in 15 minutes in an upcoming session. So if you can grab it, do it ahead of time. Don't wait for that. Otherwise, we'll talk about it in more detail in a couple weeks. Okay, the next question I see has to do valid for indicator frequency. And I believe this is a setting, Wade, you can correct me if I'm in the wrong spot, but I believe that's a setting on the indicator.
Yeah, Adam, this one's easier probably just to talk about. Really, I'm really talking about the indicator source. There's guidance in the documentation that says that the valid for frequency on I think it's on the indicator source, that your collection job should run on the same time period as that setting for valid for frequency. But I was stumped recently. I was trying to do one that was valid for fiscal quarter, but I don't see any way to run a collection job for fiscal quarter. You can only run them. You can only run them either on a set schedule or or at a particular date and time. So
yeah, fiscal. So if we're getting to fiscal, it's more complicated. I mean, I think even for the fiscal, that what you would end up doing is running it more frequently.
Okay. That's what I did.
It'll pick up. I mean, you can run a daily indicator monthly, which would be odd, but you could do that. And you certainly can run monthly indicators daily. And it just overwrites that data and gets the new information.
Right.
I'd have to see it to see if we get you the best answer. But whether it's conditional, if you did only want it to run once, it certainly can be done to only run once, the day after the quarter closes.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's not perfectly out of the box, there is a lot of work being done. And I know some of you will ask me about it every time I see you, about fiscal calendars and custom calendars. More of that's coming in, but if you do see a hole like that, feel free to post a question that's very specific in the community, or open up a case on High, and we'll make sure we explain it on how you get what you want. I mean, the most important thing is that you get the data you want when you want it. So we'll walk through that. And if there is something that's unclear in the documentation, then we'll get that fixed as well with a better use case.
Okay, thanks.
I'm always happy to hear, if you have a question, if the documentation I hope you've seen it, but I believe it's gotten a lot better in the last few releases, and we're looking to add more use cases. So feel free to drop us questions, post them in the community, because we're using those to improve the documentation so that you should be able to read the documentation and it should explain what you want to see. I know that's not always the case, but the more feedback we have, the better we'll make it. Okay, moving on to the next question. Is that okay, Wade?
Yeah, thanks. It just confused me, so that helps clear it up.
So there's a question about exporting to Excel, giving an error. If you get an error like that, the error that's being, somebody's exporting in Excel, and then when the user opens it, it's the file is corrupt and cannot be opened, put a case in on High. It should not do that. There aren't, as far as I know, there aren't known issues with that. So put a case in High, and they'll be able to identify if there are any known issues, and if not, hopefully understand what's going on, and then we'll get it fixed. Another question about hierarchies. Again, we'll do a small session on it. If you went to Knowledge, you can grab the presentation, PA 301, and we'll do a little bit of overview of it today. Again, there's multiple pieces to get in place, and I'll mention breakdown relations are really key to get multiple levels of data. The restriction we always say with breakdowns is you only get 2 levels of breakdown. That's not really true. You get 2 levels of uncorrelated data in a breakdown. So priority and category don't have any correlation, or very low correlation. So that takes 2 levels. But when you talk about manager, if I know you, I know your manager. If I know your manager, I know her manager. If I know her, I know his manager. That's all highly correlated data, and we can get that information from breakdown relations, and essentially fake multiple levels of breakdown we can get more levels of breakdown for correlated data. Okay. Thank you for sending out the link to the lab. So grab that, bookmark it. You do have to be logged in, I believe, to see the Knowledge 19 labs. There's a Knowledge 18 lab on the same thing, and a Knowledge 17, and I think a Knowledge 16. We've done the same session and improved it each year. I would expect we'll be doing it again at K20. Okay, there's a question about being able to provide stored data for PA. From PA, is there a way to export scores? so you actually can't do a full dump of indicator scores. The scores are scored in the scores table, 2 tables, depending on, should be 2 tables at this point. Some of you might have the old PA scores table. If you do want to export scores, the only way we support to do it, and the best way to do it, is through the API. There's a REST API to export the scores you want, and you tell it, I want it for everything for this indicator, the most recent data, with this breakdown, with all breakdowns, with the breakdown relation shown. I want it formatted, not formatted. All those are configuration options you can get from the API, and that's the way you want to do it. Most importantly, that will pull formula data as well. Formula indicators are not physically stored in the table. They're calculated on the fly. The API calculates them so you can get them out. If you did a dump of the table, 1, it's a huge table, and 2, you aren't going to get the formula indicators, which are really what you're looking for. Okay. The API and the Performance Analytics API, there is a server-side component, so you can access it if you're writing server-side scripts in ServiceNow, but it is a REST API. At the end of the day, we generally see it used via REST. If you search for Performance Analytics API in our documentation, that information will come up. I'm not aware of many changes. I think we use it internally in what you see, so we do add things to it as we need to. I'm not aware of any changes to the API in the last couple of releases, but there might have been a new parameter added here and there. So look for your version, but you're going to search for Performance Analytics API, and then the physical API is PA Scorecard. Okay, another question to follow up on Wade. So let me just read through this real quick. Okay, so I'm going to explain a little bit more about the a daily indicator, a monthly indicator daily. So I will see this where I actually don't care day by day. It doesn't matter enough. But I do want to see current information. So my options for that are use a real-time indicator, which may or may not be good, but I have the option of using a real-time indicator. So I can do a monthly indicator with real-time. The other option I have is I can do a monthly indicator that I collect every day. And what happens when I recollect an indicator that's already been collected is it deletes the old score, adds the new one. So I would collect I'd have a monthly indicator for number of open incidents, and I collect it every day. And what happens for every day in a job that, just like everything else, collects for yesterday. So if I ran it today, I would have the information current as October 22nd. And then tomorrow I'd have October 23rd's information all the way to the 31st. Then I'd have the 30th information. When I get to the 1st of November, it would collect the final data for October. So if I have a true monthly indicator and something like the number of distinct callers, where it actually has to be a month, it has to be a distinct number, it has to be a monthly number. I would do a monthly indicator collected daily. So it's always current as of this morning, but the current is month to date. If I just have a daily indicator, like number of incidents, which is something I'm already collecting daily, I need to have daily, but I want to see it monthly, I'd want to apply a time series. So I don't have any additional indicators. I don't have any additional collection. I don't have any additional storage. I'm just going to say, show this as a monthly indicator, or show it month to date. You have lots of different options on how you want to apply a time series. So that gets underused. So make sure that a time series application does not work for you. But if I wanted a distinct number of callers, I have to do a monthly indicator because that's the metric. And I would collect that daily. Okay, so you guys, you have the link for Knowledge 18. There is a version of that as Knowledge 19. Between 18 and 19, they're a lot the same. There's a lot of overlap. And it may even be useful to look at 17, 18, and 19 because we explain things some different ways, and maybe one way will resonate better for you. Okay. So a question came up about formula indicators and seeing the scorecard, seeing the formula being calculated. I would like to see that too. There was an issue where the formula being shown wasn't always correct. The formula being shown was correct. The internal calculations were not always correct. So it was removed. until we can figure out how to get it to always be correct 100% of the time. But I actually never saw it being wrong. So we are working on that to try to how to get that back in to be 100% accurate all the time, and to allow you to see that explanation of the calculations. I get now it's a lot more clicks than it used to be. There is no workaround, but it is, personally, I find it quite annoying as well. So I prod our development team to figure out how we're going to get that fixed and then reintroduced back in. Okay, I think I haven't addressed all the questions. We have a few more minutes, so if you have anything else and you really want to make me stress out, I'm open for it. I think Isaac's off today, so he got a nice break. But if you have anything else,
we got 8 minutes. Don't let Adam off the hook here. Let him keep talking.
Okay, I will put this plug in. I think I forgot to do it last time. If you have, got me one. All right, I'll get to the CSDM. If you have any questions between now and 2 weeks from now, throw them in the community. We're happy to, Phil, I know where you work. I'm not answering that. And I'm envious. Okay. In the community, if you have questions between now and then, post in the community, put some screenshots in. Where many of us on the call will go in and answer them. You'll get an answer between now and the 2 weeks, as opposed to waiting for us. And we have some of you on the phone and other people who aren't on the phone, really knowledgeable. You'll see a variation of ways to solve your question, to solve your issue, how you should look at it. So if you have a super technical, it's broken, you can try the community, but don't be afraid to put a case in high. But if you just want to know, how should I approach this? Is this normal? How do other people do it? Leverage that community. Lots of great information that's in there. And we are working right now to add a better index for you of some topics. But post things in the community. Make sure you include screenshots as much as you can and get those answers. There's also a lot of training that's in there. And we're adding more and more training things in there. So make sure you take a look at those articles that are there. And that should help you without waiting for us. And again, it's really useful when you put them in there. We've picked out what we're going to talk about for the rest of the year. If we need to change that, we will. But I think we're looking good for the remaining sessions. We're starting to put together what we're going to talk about for office hours for next year. Make sure you look at the office hours posting. You'll see what we're going to talk about. Invite your friends, invite your family, kids, whatever makes sense, so that you get your questions ready for those topics. If you want to send them, post us ahead of time, we'll try to address them. But the questions you put in the community are what we're trying to respond to here, as much as possible. Okay, there was another question that came in about PA contents for the new CSDM. Yeah, we planned out for PA content for everything. You saw it a few weeks ago, and if you weren't on, I think it was a month ago or 6 weeks ago. If you weren't on, then go back and look at those recordings on YouTube. There's a lot of new content packs in Madrid. There's even more in New York. There'll be more in Orlando. Some are improved, some and a lot are just new. Most new content that comes out has content packs to go with it, and I will never stop stressing, you're going to save yourselves a lot of headaches if you go look at what's out of the box. A lot of people are just going to a lot of process owners are just going to go, yes, I want that, and you're done. And even if they don't, maybe it's going to get you 80, 90% of what you want. You can customize what's there. We expect you to do that. But before you start developing any new dashboard for any content area that's not there, go look at those content packs that are out there. That documentation has greatly improved over the last few releases. There's descriptions of who would want to see this, what you can do, what reports are in there. Take a look at that, and then you can always get a dev instance or a subprod, install any content pack you want, and take a look what's there as well. So again, if you see new apps, expect there is a content pack, and if not, come grill me in the office hours. But there should be content packs that are going out with all new content. CSDM is with that, and you'll see the CSDM stuff more integrated into everything else. So lots of good stuff in there. Look at the content packs. Any other questions? CSDM is the Common Service Data Model. So what, and maybe we can talk about this more. It actually impacts you more than you know, generally. CSDM is how do we align CMDB, and how, a lot of it comes with CMDB and how we've configured that, but through the ITSM space, the ITOM space, through SAM, through CSM, everything we're delivering is very similar. And you notice that if you look at more applications, things are, 90% of the records in ServiceNow are either CIs or they're tasks, right? And through the different applications, there's lots of commonalities, but it's not perfect. And so the Common Service Data Model, CSDM, you'll see that's there now. There's a lengthy white paper on it today. Everything we're doing, everything we're building now is how do we conform to a common service data model so that you're reporting through and analytics through all of ServiceNow supports the same things, right? What are my incidents by business service, by criticality of business service? How much is this service how much is this service costing me with licensing, right? Through whatever, through Oracle or through Microsoft. All these questions, you have the same business, right? I have the same business services. So every application, every function you do, whether it's us, whether it's an application you buy from us, or it's a custom app that you build, should use the same common service definition model so that your reporting is very consistent all the way up through your CEO. That is what we're working on and live and breathe everything, all that connection, right? That's how you're going to get even more value out of ServiceNow. All right, the last comment I see is thanks again, which is one I'm very happy with. Thank you guys for joining us and asking your questions. And I will be happy to turn it back over to Tom to wrap up with our last reminders.
Yeah, that's a strong way to end it. So thanks everyone for joining. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.